aquaculture to support the future food, to support our future foods. Shellfish and seafood productions. This figure are basically from Malaysian figure, but what I have is that on the top left hand side, ini adalah data daripada FAO. These are from FAO data. You can see here that crustacean and mollusks, which basically a shellfish and a seafood, had basically contribute quite a lot of harvest as compared to finfish or even seaweeds, for example. And this show that how important is shellfish to the overall seafood production if you compare it with finfish or other aquatic animal and seaweed. And if you see, this is a Malaysian data, for example, ambil contohnya mudah saja. For example, on import, for example, Malaysian import shrimp value about 525 million ringgit in 2018, and if you go to the last column of 2019, you can see that there's an increase of import to 539 million ringgit. I mean, every year the amount of import shrimp to Malaysia had increased actually, and this showed that the demand for shrimp, which is one of the major component of the shellfish of the seafood, had increased. I mean, I think the same trend also I presume in Indonesia also. The amount of shrimp being consumed had increased year by year. And this comes to my next slide. Can sustainable aquaculture feed the world? What is the advantage of aquaculture? Some of the questions that have been asked. People are now looking into going for open sea farming, menternak ikan di laut Samudra, di lautan Sumatera, using huge infrastructure and so forth. In Malaysia also, we are now also moving into culturing for open sea cash culture or deep sea cash culture. I think in Indonesia also there's a few projects that I know been doing open sea culture now, and throughout the world there's a lot of projects also in China that I know that there's a big project culturing salmon, for example, the biggest salmon cash culture in the Yellow Sea, for example. And this is basically to tap the huge potential of the open ocean for aquaculture productions. Just to inform you all juga, di Malaysia, for example, tadi saya ada bertanya dengan Dr. Muhammad Amin di belakang dia tadi, kolam-kolam yang cantik sekali untuk menternak udang for shrimp culture. Now there's a move also in Malaysia untuk menternak udang dalam sistem sangkar. We are culturing. There's a project in Langkawi, in Pulau Langkawi, in Kedah, to culture shrimp dalam sangkar. There's a few project now in Malaysia menternak udang dalam sangkar, where they use a bit small mesh size netting. Makanannya diletak dalam satu tempat, macam satu bakul. Jadi udang tu dia makan, dia naik masuk ke dalam bakul, maka dia keluar balik duduk di sangkar. Jadi there's a commercial trial had been successfully been done in Malaysia now, and there's a move now to culture shrimp, udang putih ini, Pinus vaname or Litopinus vaname ini dalam sangkar sudah. People are now moving into culturing shrimp in cages, bukan lagi dalam kolam. Dulu kita tengok orang menternak marine shrimp dalam kolam. We are culturing marine shrimp in pond. now people are culturing in high density pond, kolam yang tinggi dalam. Now people also going into what you call it high density tank, ternak dalam tangki. Sekarang ni lagi advance, orang telah ternak udang ni dalam sangkar lagi. To go into a deep sea environment where they put feeding box tu diletak dalam sangkar, dan udang ni makan masuk dalam sangkar makan. Dan I think in Indonesia mungkin sudah ada usaha ini, tapi di Malaysia sudah ada di Langkawi. I mean, people are working and going into that now, even in Malaysia now. And of course, the advantage of aquaculture is that, as been mentioned earlier on, by 2050, penduduk dunia, our global population definitely will reach 10 billion, 9.7 billion exactly, but roughly about 10 billion people. And 52% of animal protein come from fish, come from aquaculture. This showed that how important is aquaculture to human requirement, protein human requirement. About 52% are from aquaculture productions. And if you can see, aquaculture will provide almost 2/3 of the global fish consumption by 2030. 2/3 of the as compared to the fishery caught, fishery industry will be slowing down because of the depleting resources and so forth. And of course, aquaculture will be the emerging sector that contribute to the global demand of our aquaculture productions. And these are some of the advantages of aquaculture as sustainable food productions. I mean, in terms of nutrition benefits, source of income, di Indonesia, di Malaysia, perusahaan budidaya, menternak ikan, menternak udang adalah sumber pendapatan masyarakat di pedalaman dan masyarakat in rural areas. It is still the main source of incomes for the local community, for the fishermen community, opportunity for employments, menyediakan peluang pekerjaan kepada graduan-graduan kita yang keluar, industri-industri yang dipelopori oleh syarikat-syarikat besar, akan menjadi memberi peluang pekerjaan kepada graduan kita bekerja, anak-anak kita yang keluar, insya-Allah akan bekerja dan memberi peluang pekerjaan kepada mereka. Aquaculture juga adalah the cheapest comparatively to livestock meat. Harganya, price are much more cheaper, and it will basically reduce over harvesting of the natural resources, dan ini akan mengurangkan industri tangkapan perikanan, reduce the captive fishery, and then aquaculture production will be increased much more further, especially after 2030, as we mentioned earlier on. Production increase every year, as we mentioned earlier on, that aquaculture production is a fast growing sector, almost 2 times as compared to other sector, livestock sector. Less land use. We are now talking about open sea cash culture, or sea farming, we call it, menternak di laut Sumatera, sea farming, and the available culture technique for some species around the world, and of course most of our aquaculture species contribute to health benefits. These are some of the advantage of aquaculture, seed productions, food production from aquaculture, and some of the main criteria to basically to look into for shellfish to become a potential future food. If you have time, probably you can go into some of this paper they are been published in Nature. One will be in Nature. The other one is been published in a review, in a comprehensive review. Okay, basically talking about shellfish provide narrative, nutritive value, health benefit, and consumer safety that basically eligible for shellfish to become a potential future food. And I will go through some of the research elements that relate to why shellfish are basically a very good potential candidate for future food. These are basically eight of the main criteria. I will go slowly after this. Okay. The first one will be biotics and abiotic stress response and tolerance. While many shellfish species are more versatile than major fish, due to the high tolerance to various biotics and abiotic stress, they have also very, what we call it, prominent shortcoming in becoming a primary future food source. One of it is low survival rate. Saya ambil contoh macam kepiting, ketab, crab for example. Crab, they are very tolerant to disease. Jarang kita dengar cerita pasal disease in crab. Jarang kita dengar penyakit dalam ketam, for example. We seldom hear much of what we call it heavy mortality because of disease in crab farming, for example, or ketam renjungan. Tetapi the main problem dengan ketam ini adalah they have very low survival. They have very low survival, less than 1%, for example. And most crustaceans have very low survival. Even in shrimp, for example, like udang laut, for example, they have survival probably about 50% to 60% compared to fish, for example. But fish, for example, they have more high tolerance to biotics and antibiotic stress as compared to most of the shellfish species. So ini adalah peluang untuk kita melihat kajian yang lebih mendalam. These are some of the area that we can look into to see how best we improve the survival rate. To improve the survival rate, and if we can improve the survival rate, inshallah we can improve the seed productions. We can establish the breeding technology and increase the productions in the culture system or in pond or in tanks. Dan ini adalah perkara yang begitu banyak sekali boleh dipikirkan. Ini adalah berkaitan dengan breeding technology. So one of the important area that we need to look into is the breeding technology to increase the survival rate of most of these crustaceans. Okay. The second one is a short life cycle. Comparatively to fish, crustacean or shellfish, they basically have very short life cycle. Kitaran hidup yang pendek saja. As compared to some fish, for example. Contoh, I'm giving an example. Contohnya macam ketam renjongan, for example, ataupun ketam kepiting, for example, kepiting crabs. The life cycle probably around 6 to 1 year, less than 1 year life cycle. Daripada hatch until they become mature, produce and mati dalam 6 ataupun bawah daripada 1 tahun. Mase ni adalah ikan toa species. I think you have in Indonesia juga toa species ni. 18 bulan untuk matang, untuk jadi dewasa. Comparatively almost 3 times higher as compared to crab. This show that crab have very high potential because they have very short life cycle, and they are very good for fast aquaculture productions. They are candidate for fast aquaculture production. Jadi itu sebabnya kajian perlulah dilihat lebih kepada biology life cycle. Not many study have been done to look into the life cycle of specifically some of the shellfish species. Banyak lagi, there's a lot of potential shellfish species can be selected as a potential future food. Sebab when you talk about shellfish, hanya kita tahu kepiting, renjongan, udang harimau, tiger shrimp, apa tu disebutnya di Indonesia disebutnya udang harimau ni disebut lupa sudah saya.
Udang windu, no?
Udang windu, okay.
Udang windu, it's Neosmonodon.
Thank you, Dr. Amin. Udang windu,
No.
udang windu. Tidak banyak lagi spesies lain yang kita terokai. We have a lot of these marine crabs and marine shrimp and even freshwater shrimp that yet to be explored. Jadi we should go and explore the basic life cycle of these shrimps and these potential crabs, for example, or other some even lobsters, for example, some lobsters can sea lobsters and so forth, which basically will contribute to a potential candidate for aquaculture as a future food. Yang ketiganya adalah biological understanding. A great deal of success in aquaculture activity can be attributed to a full understanding of biological and technical knowledge of a culture species. Saya ambil contohnya macam talipia. There's a lot of study been done on talipia to look into the biology requirement and so forth. So saya rasa peluang untuk mengkaji, untuk membuat kajian to study in depth with regard to the biology and the fundamental biology, even the reproductive biology of this species, that basically can become a potential candidate for aquaculture and again a potential candidate for future food. Tapi dengan syarat kita kena mengkaji aspek biologi. There's a lot of biological aspect that we need to study if we are going for the success of this potential species to become our aquaculture candidate. Banyak boleh kita kaji kan. Dan seterusnya adalah nutrition value. Kebanyakan most shellfish had been known to contain a lot of high nutrition value, protein, essential amino acid, even bioactive peptide, even fatty acids, carotenoids, vitamin B12, what's called minerals. It's basically include like copper, zinc, carbonic phosphate, sodium phosphate, and there's a lot of nutrition value come from most of these shellfish. And as we also know that shellfish had also a larger source of animal protein comparatively to other meat source actually. So they contribute to a huge advantage as compared to fish, for example, in terms of the nutrition value. And I think research should be focused on here. I know that there's a lot of study being done to look into, contohnya macam di UMT kita ada kajian, saya rasa di even untuk melihat to do an extract on this kepiting mud crab untuk mengurangkan kesan jangkitan malaria, for example, sakit nyamuk, for example. sesama oleh nyamuk, for example, oleh mosquito, for example. They have the ability to cure from disease that related to mosquito, for example, like some of this mud crab soup, for example, they've been used to cook as mud crab soup, for example. Traditionally been taken to reduce fever, high fever, for example. Even semasa COVID hari itu, ramai yang mengambil kepiting, sup kepiting untuk mengurang daripada demam disebabkan oleh COVID-19, for example. Ada juga orang menggunakan sup kepiting, dan ini menunjukkan bahawa nilai-nilai nutrisi adalah tinggi dalam kebanyakan shellfish. The nutrition value that basically derived from these shellfish resources are very high. And of course, health benefit ini yang saya ceritakan tadi, ada bioactive compound that basically has potential to enhance health benefits. Contohnya rawatan dengue, for example. Dengue ini adalah disebabkan oleh nyamuk dengue, nyamuk Aedes dengue, for example. And even study had shown that mud crab have potential to cure some cancer, for example. There's a study been done even in Malaysia and even in Indonesia to show that the potential of mud crab have the abstract from mud crab can cure dengue and cancer. And there's a lot of potential basically come from shellfish. I think the area of further research is there, and that the huge potential that we can explore in terms of to see what are the other benefit or the nutrition value that can basically benefit our health. And as we know also, shellfish, every year the amount consumed keep on increasing, basically because our world population are increasing actually, and the consumer basically had increased, and this had basically also increased the demand. And in Malaysia also, you can see here the graph, most of our shellfish had increased year by year. The demand for shellfish had increased year by year. I think the same trend as here in Malaysia, also in Indonesia, the world trend had also increasing very, very fast in terms of the demand. And this is one of the advantage of having research and having to contribute to the aquaculture production because of this increased demand. In terms of consumer safety, shellfish are basically and mostly been cultured in protected coastal area, usually that under pressure from human activity, and this basically will reduce the exposure of any shellfish culture or activity to various hazards. And I think most shellfish, even shrimp and so forth, they have been cultured in very hygiene environment. For example, dalam keadaan yang hygiene yang begitu tinggi, dalam kebersihan yang begitu tinggi, dan ini menunjukkan bahawa there are consumer safety to consumer. They are very the SOP and what you call it, the guideline of culturing most of these shellfish are very, very strict, and this is to ensure the high quality standard and the quality assurance of the meat that being produced from this aquaculture production systems. Lastly, one of the most important criteria that I think we need to look into also is to have a low production cost. Seafood seem to be increasing expensive, harga seafood ni bagi kebanyakan masyarakat sukar untuk dibeli. Di Malaysia begitu juga, masyarakat di luar bandar agak sukar untuk membeli seafood ni sebabnya harganya mahal-mahal. Jadi yang makan seafood ni orang-orang yang berada sedikit. Most of the rich family can only consume seafood because they are very expensive. Kepiting di Terengganu ni, just to share with you, kepiting di sini 1 kilonya hampir 60-70 ringgit Malaysia. 1 kilo, 1 kilo is about 60 to 70 ringgit. That are very expensive. Kalau kita beli ayam baru saja 5 ringgit, 6 ringgit saja 1 kilo. Ayam 5 ringgit, 6 ringgit saja. Kalau kepitingnya 50 ringgit ke 60 ringgit 1 kilo. Jadi they are huge, they are very expensive. And this had created tidak ramai orang boleh beli. People access to this type of food are very less. Jadi we should work together, scientists and then pelajar-pelajar nanti, anak-anak nanti, mungkin boleh memikirkan bagaimana untuk mengurangkan kos pengeluaran, the production cost. Here in Malaysia, now viral di Malaysia untuk pengetahuan semua, bercerita tentang kos makanan yang meningkat di Malaysia sekarang ni. I don't know the scenario in Indonesia, tapi in Malaysia now, harga-harga barang makanan meningkat sekarang ni. Sayur meningkat, ayam pun meningkat. Dulu ayam 5 ringgit sekilo, sekarang ni ayam sudah naik ke 10 ringgit sekilo, 12 ringgit 1 kilo ayam. One of the main reason for this increase in the prices is because of the operation cost increase. Kos pengeluaran meningkat. And one of the main contributor to this production cost adalah kos makanan. Kos makanan. Makanan ayam meningkat. Begitu juga dengan ternakan ikan dan ternakan aquaculture di Malaysia. Kosnya meningkat disebabkan oleh kos makanan. I think we know that 60%, even 70%, 60 to 70% of the production cost datang daripada makanan. Jadi one of our focus is to look into how does we reduce this production cost. Bagaimanakah caranya untuk mengurangkan kos makanan ni? Kita mungkin boleh menggunakan sumber protein yang lebih murah. Dulu kita menggunakan sumber protein daripada fish meal, daripada sumber ikan yang menyumbang kepada harga yang begitu tinggi. I think we need to look into contohnya menggunakan plant-based protein, protein daripada tumbuhan-tumbuhan. Ramai yang pergi kepada soya bean, tapi soya bean itu mahal juga. Soya bean are very expensive also. Then people will go into kacang tanah, groundnut. Kacang-kacang ini pun mahal juga untuk masak-masak, minyak masak-masak. Jadi then we should go into looking into other alternative like the wild plant, and even here in UMT, I know my colleague Professor Abul had done a good project to use itu pokok water lily ataupun lotus. Dia mengandungi protein yang tinggi. Pokok water lily ini protein yang tinggi. Jadi there's a lot of potential out there from plant-based protein to compensate the high cost of fish meal that basically contribute to a high cost of feed. Dan ini nanti boleh mengurangkan kos pengeluaran. We will reduce the cost of production, and inshallah we reduce and the overall cost, and hopefully will inshallah will reduce the price of the food, dan semua orang boleh beli inshallah. Jadi itu adalah antara yang boleh kita lihat. What is the way forward dari perspektif UMT daripada Aquaculture? Kita di Aquaculture dan mungkin di Fakulti Perikanan dan Kelautan, or the Faculty of Fishery and Marine Science, UNAI, probably one of the way forward is to do more research on shellfish aquaculture for future food. Itu yang kita buat sini di Institute Tropical Aquaculture dan Perikanan. We have special program to look into ini, dan kita sebenarnya telah diberi penarafan. We had basically been accredited as high COE ataupun pusat penyelidikan kecemerlangan tinggi ataupun high COE untuk melihat future food. So our team in Aquaculture basically sustainable shellfish aquaculture for future food. Ini yang kita nak kongsi bersama dengan rakan di Indonesia, di UNAI, bersama dengan Fakultas Perikanan dan Sains Kelautan ataupun the Faculty of Fishery and Marine Science. We hope to share and to collaborate this way forward dengan rakan-rakan di sana. We are looking into 4 main component. Yang pertama adalah resource sustainability. Secondly, our research program adalah breeding technology, pentingnya untuk menghasilkan benih, to produce seeds. Thirdly is to look into green technology, menggunakan teknologi yang mesra alam, environmental friendly technology yang tidak mencemarkan alam sekitar, yang tidak you don't reduce pollutions. Yang akhir sekali adalah untuk melihat shellfish health and food quality assurance. These are the 4 main program that have been laid out in our high SUI for this 3 years program. I will share with you some of our colleagues. Dengan perkongsian ini, insyaAllah rakan-rakan di Indonesia dan juga anak-anak di sana, mungkin mana-mana yang ingin menyambung pengajian di UMT boleh datang ke sini, insyaAllah, untuk peringkat master dan PhD nanti, insyaAllah. Saya kongsikan bersama, ini adalah program pertama, resource sustainability. Ini adalah 4 ahli utama, diketuai oleh Dr. Muhammad Fazahan, dan beliau di kumpulan ini juga dianggoti oleh 3 orang profesor. Seorangnya adalah Profesor Dr. Mazlan Abdul Ghaffar. Beliau juga adalah our Vice Chancellor, our University Vice Chancellor. Kalau di UNAI itu disebut Rector kot, selesa Rector. Tapi di Malaysia disebut Vice Chancellor. Jadi Prof. Mazlan is our Vice Chancellor. Dia juga duduk dalam Resource Sensibility Group. Lepas itu Profesor Azura dan Puan Ain Muhammad Hussein. Ini adalah 4 kumpulan utama. Kita ada lagi ahli-ahli lain dalam kumpulan ini. Ini adalah 4 yang utama. They are basically looking into the revive the natural population of highly exported and also looking into the effect of climate changes on the variable shellfish species seperti udang, seperti shrimps, oyster, and of course the udang window, the black Pinus monodon, to ensure the pure breed for sustainable seed production. Itu niatnya dalam kumpulan ini. This is under my group. Saya di sini bersama dengan Dr. Liu Honjiong, bersama dengan Profesor Abul Munafi dan Dr. Ku Wai Ho. Ini adalah 4 member utama. Kita ada member-member lain juga di sini. Saya tak letak di sini. Kita ada associate member from the faculty. These are the main member. We are basically focusing on breeding technology development for seed production for commercial shellfish species to ensure sustainable growth productions. We are looking to some of the marine crabs. We are still working on mud crab. We are also working on the marine shrimp, like the little Pinus vaname and Pinus vaname monodon. Ini adalah spesies yang kita banyak lakukan di sini. The third group are basically to develop green technology to ensure environmental impacts and to ensure sustainability of the growth productions. Basically yang berkaitan dengan ketam dan marine shrimp, Lepidopterus banami. Di sini kita ada Dr. Azman, kita ada Associate Professor Dr. Azman, we have Associate Professor Dr. Maisan, Tabai, we ada Professor Dr. Lam Sunshi. Mereka juga ada kajian berkaitan dengan circular economy. Prof. Lam and Dr. Maisan, they are also working on circular economy. They are also working on biorefinery. Biorefinery ini adalah menggunakan sisa-sisa daripada aquaculture ni untuk kegunaan yang berguna. I mean, they are Dr. Maisan especially, he is working on to utilize all the waste from shrimp to become useful products under the biorefinery program that Dr. Maisan and Professor Lam are working on. And yang akhir sekali adalah di bawah Associate Professor Dr. Marina Hassan, insyaAllah bakal profesor kita tidak lama lagi. Associate Professor Dr. Marina Hassan, he lead the program, the fourth program, basically tentang penyakit, sama bidang dengan Bapa Dekan kita, Prof. Amin, Muhammad Amin, Pak Dekan kita dalam bidang penyakit. Begitu juga di sini mereka akan melihat, they are looking into quality and food safety on the shellfish product from Indo Aquaculture and Laboratory Productions. Di sini kita ada Associate Professor Dr. Ufah yang juga biasa pergi ke Airlangga di Unai sana dengan Associate Professor Dr. Nurul Ufah. Kita ada Professor Dr. Yong Sun dan Associate Professor Dr. Anissa Harun. Dr. Anissa adalah lebih kepada nanoparticle punya program. These are the four main members yang diketuai oleh Prof. Dr. Marina Hassan, dan ada lagi ahli-ahli lain di sini, tapi kita tidak letak, insyaAllah ada ramai lagi member yang lain dalam kumpulan ini. Dan sebagai kesimpulannya, sustainable shellfish aquaculture for future food adalah way forward, and shellfish aquaculture will have to produce more food, tetapi with less cost. Production cost tu kena kurang supaya semua orang boleh manfaat daripada hasil yang dikeluarkan. Jadi fokus, it's very important to produce more food from shellfish, tetapi dengan harga yang kurang. Sebab shellfish ni sinonim dengan seafood harga yang mahal. Bila kita sebut seafood ni harganya mahal sekali, tidak mampu dimakan oleh orang yang biasa-biasa. Jadi I think it's time for us untuk menukar perspektif ini, to change this perspective, looking into to produce a low cost production seafood, supaya more seafood being produced tapi costnya rendah, less cost. Secondly, to produce using green technology so that the system will be sustainable, culture system, dan juga untuk mengurangkan waste, food waste, untuk mengurangkan food waste. Yang ketiganya, we should utilize efficiently the natural resources. Contohnya natural resources yang kita ambil untuk tujuan production, we should utilize, dan ini boleh diambil, dicapai melalui permintaan to increase the demand for the resources that they produce from our future productions. Dan akhir sekali adalah to minimize impact on our environmental, as we mentioned earlier on, green technology is the approach. These are the four approach that we need to focus on if you want to ensure that the sustainable of shellfish aquaculture can support for future food, especially in the growing population yang kita sebut tadi sebagai we are coming into 10 billion people by 2050. And shellfish aquaculture is one of the way forward toward our future food. Jadi itu saja daripada saya, Prof dan rakan-rakan penyelidik, anak-anak, sedikit perkongsian daripada saya petang ini. InsyaAllah saya dapat ia dapat memberi manfaat kepada semua yang hadir petang ini. Jadi itu saja daripada saya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Ihwanuddin, for your very informative and knowledgeable presentation. Silahkan untuk adik-adik yang mau bertanya, bisa bertanya. You can ask in English or Indonesia juga, or bahasa. I think Prof Ihwanuddin juga sangat paham, Prof ya. Oke, ya silakan. Mungkin ada yang mau bertanya, audiens, dari audiens. Mungkin sambil menunggu pertanyaan dari yang lain, Prof ya, saya bertanya dulu. Jadi begini, Prof. Nowadays we are trying to research on lobster actually.
Okay.
Me and also Professor Ahmad Taufik Mukti, and also some students trying to breed lobster.
Okay.
But based on some reference, it says that the problem is in diet.
Okay.
So at this time, we culturing lobster broodstock with carrying their eggs. And I think in few weeks, I think we will have the larvae.
Okay.
Because the eggs, after we observe it, they are developing over time. So I think in 2 weeks, I think we will have a larvae. Then the next question would be, what should we feed them? I think I got some information also from some of my friends who has been doing this kind of research, and the problem always in providing a suitable feed for them. So do you have any suggestion what kind of feed should we provide, especially for those lobster larvae? Maybe you have any experience. Maybe please share with us. Thank you very much, Professor.
Terima kasih, Dr. Hamid. Previously, I have a student actually working on Spiny lobster, mud Spiny lobster larvae.
Right. Yeah.
But eventually he didn't complete the project.
Okay.
Then he because it was very hard to produce the what do you call it, the juvenile. It takes quite some time to produce the Penarelulus. Takes about 9 months to 10 months, and the survival are very low. Even 0%, most of the time 0%, the survival. And I do agree with you that the main issue with spiny lobster larvae, the first feeding, it seemed to be what we did is that we produce quite a lot of rotifer. Try to feed them with rotifer. It seemed to be working very good using red rotifer, but the issue of using rotifer, it seemed to be the next day and the next day, most of the rotifer are being consumed. Then we have to put up more rotifer into the culture tank, and the problem with our facility here, on most facilities, that we cannot maintain our pure culture rotifer. It seems to be there are rotifer tend to be what do we call it, polluted with other ciliate and so forth. Dia ada pencemaran rotifer. We can't maintain the pure rotifer. And when you have this contamination yang tercemar, rotifer yang tercemar dengan Barang-barang cemar ni akan menyerang anak lobster. Because this lobster are very fragile. They are almost like macam kapas, Pak. Macam kapas. Dia jam kapas, jam kapas. And they are very fragile actually. When you have a lot of bacterial infection in the water, and one of the high mortality occur because of the infection actually, bacterial infection and so forth. If you have, then we use artemia. We use artemia, and again, artemia. The second thing about artemia, they are a bit fast. Artemia are very fast because this larvae dia perlahan saja, Pak. Dia macam dia moving very slow, and they basically require what you call it very high density artemia. Kalau dia terlanggar baru dimakan, maksudnya dia tidak boleh mengejar artemia itu. I think the best way is still rotifer but in high density. Tetapi you need to maintain the rotifer in very high hygiene supaya dia tidak ada pencemaran bakteria pada rotifer. I think selepas tu, Pak, lebih mudah. Especially about the first month and the second month are very crucial actually. You need to feed them properly and quite a lot and ensure that the hygiene are been maintained. Maksudnya tidak ada pencemaran bakteria. They are very fragile actually, the larvae. But most of my work with my students are basically looking into broodstock and cryopreservation. I have a field student, one student that graduated from. You can look into some of my paper with my student in aquaculture and so forth with regard to the spiny lobster. But they are on broodstock. I have one student previously working on a larvae, but he didn't finish the project. And dia tukar the project untuk melihat reproductive biology sebab sukar untuk mendapat benih. Jadi my immediate advice adalah makanan tu ada, Pak, Dr. Amin. You can use rotifer, you can use artemia, but ensure that this live food to be what do you call it? To be free from other contamination from bacteria and so forth. Makanan boleh pakai, Pak. Makanan diet, natural diet boleh pakai, tetapi you require to have very slight aeration. If you are using what you call it encapsulated diet, makanan tepung itu, you perlu ada satu bubble yang kecil sikit supaya makanan itu terapung. Sebabnya larvae ni kalau you on aeration yang kuat macam udang Vaname or monodon, they can stand the strong aerations. But lobster ni dia tidak boleh udara yang kuat, Pak, aeration yang kuat. Dia akan cedera dan rosak. Jadi they require only very mild aeration. When you use makanan yang serbuk ni, makanan tu tidak mau naik ke atas, Pak. Jadi you still need live food juga. You still need live food. Itu pengalaman saya, Pak.
Alright, thank you very much, Professor Ihwanuddin, for your information. We'll try. Hopefully, we can get some live lobster larvae in future. Okay, is there any questions from the audience? Hello. One more question, Professor Ihwanuddin. I think we read some of your papers, and then one of them is predicted how the age of the lobster, because nowadays we also with Professor Ahmad Taufik, we also have some students who studying the gonadal maturity, in which which age they are ready enough to be a broodstock for spiny lobster. And then we have some difficulties in predicting the age. And then I think one of your paper, I think we read, and then you use something in their gastric meal called, if I'm not mistaken, it was a pterocardiac ossicle and endocuticle something. So is it possible if we have some of these organ and then we send to your lab for analysis, because we don't have such equipment here in our faculty? Thank you very much, Professor, because it's very important to predict in which age the spiny lobster ready enough to be used as a broodstock. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you, Doctor. Actually, the student that did the project was my master student. Actually, now she is in her PhD study. I mean, I can, if you have sample that hopefully, inshallah, I can help you to do the sample. We actually have one professor actually coming from Canada by the name of Khalida, Professor Khalida. Professor Khalida is from Canada. He is basically an expert in aging. If you have time, you can type in Google's or in any Google Scholar Kilada, K-I-L-A-D-A, Kilada, K-I-L-A-D-A. You can see his name, and most of his work are basically on aging. So during this project with my master student, we also refer to him actually. My master student who wrote the paper is now doing his PhD now. I mean, if you have sample, we can help you to do the histology here. We have the facility here with the Faculty of Fishery and Food Science, okay, with Dr. Rumi. In Aquaculture, we have also, but most of our histology here are basically to cut for soft tissue, but we have a histology set in the faculty to do that. We can help you if you want to send a sample. It's basically a hard structure in the gastric meal. Perut, Pak, dalam perutnya ada satu gastric meal yang keras. Itu diambil keluar, the gastric meal dalam perutnya. Dalam lobster pun ada. Dan itu dibersihkan, dipotong menggunakan satu blade, golden blade, diamond blade. Okay. Dan dia akan dibuat dalam plate slide, dan untuk dilihat dia ada ring, dia ada growth ring dia. Nanti kalau if Dr. Amin have the sample, I mean you can send it, you can send us the sample and we can help you to process it. Boleh, tidak masalah Pak, boleh.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ihmanuddin. Actually, based on your paper, we already prepared the gastric meal of the lobster, so in several size. So yeah, we have it actually. It will be wonderful if we can send it to you. Okay. Thank you very much. Well, there is some questions in the chat room. Maybe I can read it for you, Professor.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Ihmanuddin, for the presentation. I want to ask, one, is it difficult to formulate the diet for shellfish? I think that's the first question.
Feed formulation is not difficult actually. I think in the UNAI, I think you have a lot of expert in UNAI looking into nutrition actually. Here in UMT, we have a field expert that we have here. One will be Dr. Liu. Dr. Liu, this is the assistant professor, Dr. Liu. Is working on some of the feed formulation using, now his project now is looking on black soldier fly larvae. Black soldier fly larvae. Then to use the protein source from black soldier fly larvae, because we know that the fish meal are very expensive now. So one of the approach is to use black soldier fly larvae.
Black soldier fly.
Kita ada satu projek juga Pak, mungkin boleh saya kongsi bersama juga. We are now having one project, myself, Dr. Liu and Dr. Azman Kasan, working with Qatar University Qatar di Qatar, under the Qatar National Research Fund. Kita ada baru dapat grant untuk to produce black soldier fly larvae.
Alright.
Fly larvae ni kita bagi makan sayur-sayuran, Pak. Sayur-sayuran, sebab di Qatar tu banyak sayur-sayuran yang terbuang. Jadi sayur-sayuran ni digunakan untuk memberi makanan kepada black soldier fly untuk menghasilkan larvae. Larvae-nya digunakan untuk menghasilkan makanan kepada udang galah. Industri udang galah baru berkembang di Qatar. Jadi itulah projek yang kita buat di Qatar. I can share the experience. Nanti Pak boleh nanti kalau ada rezekinya Pak, mungkin kita semua rakan-rakan di UNAI boleh datang ke sini. InsyaAllah mungkin kita boleh tengok Dr. Liu, lab Dr. Liu yang buat makanan ni. Dr. Liu are now working with some industry component. Begitu juga dengan Profesor Abul Munafi, dia juga buat makanan untuk ikan freshwater fish, ikan sungai dan sebagainya. Dia juga banyak membuat makanan. Jadi tidak sukar untuk membuat. Kita ada kemudahan di sini. Dan saya rasa kita boleh kongsi dan ini mungkin juga kita boleh kongsi bersama dengan rakan di sana nanti, insyaAllah.
So that is very interesting, Professor. We will wait for that, and then hopefully we can do some research collaboration in future. And the next question, Professor, what about the non-natural feed for shellfish? Is it possible to be given? Yes, you explained it before, but maybe more in terms of what is there any, maybe the question means like any specific formulation in terms of maybe protein content and etc. Is there any specific information for lobster, especially for the larva stage?
The diet, is it Doctor?
Yep.
Live food, is it?
Non-natural food. So it means like maybe artificial diet.
Okay. We have one researcher here who are doing on what we call it inbound diet. By the name of Dr. Diana. Diana with the Faculty of Fishery and Food Science. He did his PhD in Queensland in Australia on formulating a diet for mud crab larvae. Larvae renjongan, ketam renjongan. Okay. He's doing what we call it inbound diet, makanan yang halus macam tepung tu. Dia buat. We have the facility and we have the expert. Untuk makanan tu lebih sesuai dia. Jadi dia juga adalah ahli kepada institute, one of our also close member to the institute. Kalau ada rakan-rakan di sana yang ingin buat makanan, mungkin saya boleh saja hantar nama kepada saya, nanti saya akan hubungi Dr. Diana. Dr. Diana also have supervised a field student with myself dengan Dr. Diana.
Alright. Thank you very much, Professor. Another question, Professor, from Farika. The question is, would you please share to us the news information about the prospect and constraints of green mussel cultivation today? Green mussel is one of the native species in Indonesia which is underutilized in our country. Thank you very much, Professor Iwan.
Terima kasih seorang yang very good questions and very pertinent question also. Green mussel also popular in Malaysia. One of the what we call it the dominant culture site is in Johor, in the Strait of Johor. Di Selat Johor memisahkan semenanjung Malaysia dengan Singapura. The Strait of Johor is the strait that basically separate Malaysia and Singapore. So in the Strait of Johor, there's a lot of green mussel cultivation been done there. actually in the street of Johor, and the price is also comparatively good also, because most of the green massa are basically been utilized for seafood consumptions. Here in Malaysia also, we have also in Malacca, I think a place in Malacca, and some area in Negeri Sembilan, also in even in Borneo, in Sarawak also, there's some area where we culture this green massa. Of course, the potential green massa are there, except that tidak banyak produk yang boleh dihasilkan daripada green massa. Saya do agree dengan yang bertanya soalan tadi, saya sangat bersetuju. Green massa, oyster, these are species. These species are basically what we call it low energy consumption species. Dia tidak perlu banyak menggunakan production cost. They require only to culture them in sea and in confined area, and the production input are very less actually. But yet the way forward, the product development is still very low. Jadi saya rasa probably one of the way forward is to produce one would be to produce a fast growing and what we call it a fast growing massa, and to reduce the culture period. And one of our member, Norani Muhammad Hussein, is what we call it an expert in bivalve, especially in oyster and green massa, and she basically doing breeding on related to, I think some of you have been doing on triploids and so forth, to produce what we call a fast growth oyster and massa, so that the growth period will be very short, and because it's very important to grow this mollusk in a short period of time. This is to avoid pollution, untuk mengelakkan dia terlalu lama diternak, untuk mengelakkan pencemaran. Jadi semakin pendek dia diternak semakin baik. Satu, untuk mengelakkan pencemaran, dan dia lebih cepat membesar. Jadi one of the strategy is to develop a breeding technology where Nur Ain is working on oyster to produce fast growing oyster melalui triploid dan tetraploid oyster to produce tetraploid progeny, anak-anak tetraploid, supaya dia cepat membesar. Dan juga we have also Dr. Ufa here, who is I think most of you know Dr. Ufa, Associate Professor Dr. Ufa, who is working on food quality, and saya rasa one of our strategy is also to diversify makanan daripada green massa ni, supaya permintaannya meningkat. Jadi I think that's basically the approach that we have now with regard to massas and to oyster.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Ihwanuddin, for your answer. And is there more questions from audience?
Saya coba Pak Amin.
Yes, please, Pak Professor Ahmad.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Ihwanuddin. Terima kasih, Prof. Menyambung yang ditanyakan Pak Amin tadi, Prof, terkait dengan pengujian X determination lobster ya, lewat osikel, terkait alat, Prof, boiler isometso ya. Jadi untuk memotong yang apa namanya,
diamond
Gastrik, ya. Itu kan ada alat istilahnya boiler ya. Boiler isomet ya. Boiler isomet show. Itu kalau di Indonesia agak susah.
Oke.
Ya, kalau gimana kalau di UMT atau di Malaysia, Prof? Apakah sudah banyak terkait dengan peralatan untuk pemotongan itu, OSN itu ya? Itu, Prof.
Tidak juga banyak, Pak. We don't have a lot of lab to do that. Ada beberapa makmal yang saya tahu ada di UMT, ada di Fakultas Perikanan, at our Faculty of Fishery and Food Science. Di Aquaculture kita akan ada apabila Prof Kelautan. We are still waiting for Professor Kelautan untuk sampai ke sini untuk set up a lab here in Aquaculture. So one of the reason why we hire Prof Kelautan, we appoint Prof Kelautan is to develop an aging lab untuk mewujudkan satu makmal untuk mengukur umur Prof. He is also bringing his facility from Canada, including this cutting tool and so forth. Jadi kalaunya di tetapi kalau Bapak mahu alat itu, Pak, mungkin kita boleh minta Prof Kelautan untuk bagi pembekalnya. Nanti kita boleh maklum kepada Bapak. Kalau Bapak, if you require, I can ask from Dr. Rumi here from the Faculty of Fishery and Food Science, di mana dia beli alat itu. Nanti saya boleh maklum kepada Bapak kalau Bapak perlu alat itu. Tidak masalah.
Baik, Prof. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Professor Ihwanuddin. Is there more any questions from audience? Bisa bertanya dalam bahasa ya untuk adik-adik mungkin yang masih khawatir menggunakan bahasa Inggris, silahkan bisa bertanya dalam bahasa. Bisa silahkan langsung bertanya ya. Mungkin sambil menunggu, Prof, mungkin adik-adik lagi memformulasikan pertanyaannya. You mentioned earlier several research that you have been done so far, and also some projects. In case if our students want to do a research over there, is there any possibility? If maybe one of our master student or let's say bachelor students for doing their thesis over there, if it's possible, how is the mechanisms? Yes, Professor, maybe that's it, my question.
One of the important questions actually, we welcome all what we call it inbound student. Kita menerima semua pelajar inbound, Pak. Even kalau tidak ada joint supervisions, we have presently we have about 4 or 5 students from Africa who PhD students who are coming here for attachment. We don't have any what we call co-supervision with the supervisor. They have write a letter to us. The requirement from the university is to do some attachment and training at specific lab. We have about 14 lab. Kita ada 14 makmal di sini, Pak, to do some lab training here for 3 months or 5 months here. Kita terima, Pak. Kita tidak ada masalah. That is very good for us. Also, is part and parcel for our inbound training. The basic requirement is that you just write a letter to us. From Africa, student tulis surat, kita terima saja. Kalau pelajar anak-anak mau tulis surat pun tidak masalah, ataupun boleh melalui dekan, Bapak Dekan, Prof Muhammad Amin Alam Shah, boleh juga menghantar ke sini, ataupun terus daripada pensyarah pun terus pergi ke sini pun tak apa. Terus saja pergi ke saya sendiri pun tak apa. Emailnya ada di sini. Kalau anak-anak mau terus tulis, insyaAllah kita akan of course kalau pelajar-pelajar ini ada joint supervision Pak, biasanya penginapannya kita akan free, percuma penginapannya. Contohnya macam Prof. Ahmad Taufik ada pelajar masternya. Lepas tu kita buat joint supervision. Lantik contohnya saya ataupun Dr. Liu sebagai co-supervisornya. Jadi bila student Prof. Ahmad datang ke UMT, semua penginapannya akan ditanggung oleh universiti. Tidak ada masalah.
Oke.
Buat surat saja, surat pelantikan, kita ada surat pelantikan sebagai co-supervision, kita akan hantar kepada sini dan kita akan hantar kepada bahagian siswaza untuk maklum bahawa ada pelajar inbound yang joint supervision. Joint supervision lagi mudah, banyak kemudahannya. Penginapannya percuma, tetapi kalau tidak ada joint supervision, tak ada apa-apa, boleh juga, masih boleh juga datang sini, tapi biayanya sendiri.
Okay, Prof. What about the research costs, Professor? Let's say they need a material for the research, etc.
Ditanggung, Pak.
Ditanggung.
All the research material for what I call it, joint supervision will be catered here. Contohnya, Dr. Muhammad Amin nak menghantar pelajar PhD-nya ke sini. Mungkin ada bekerjasama dengan Profesor Abul contohnya di Aquaculture. Contohnya joint supervision. Jadi masih berada di sini 1 semester ataupun 1 tahun di sini, semuanya ditanggung kosnya, ditanggung kos penyelidikannya. Tidak ada masalah.
Alright, thank you very much, Professor Imanuddin, for the information. Hopefully, there are some students will be interested and also join that program.
Inshallah.
Insyaallah. Alright, ada pertanyaan lagi? Hello, is there more question, please? Bisa bahasa Indonesia, bisa bahasa ya. Silakan.
Saya tanya Pak Amin.
Oh ya, silakan. Ibu Putri Desi, Profesor Iwanuddin. Bu Desi is our head of study program in aquaculture. Silakan Bu Desi.
Silakan.
Thank you, Prof. Iwanuddin. Selamat sore. Ya, kalau melihat audiens, ini memang masih mahasiswa di semester awal, Prof. Iwan. Jadi mungkin saya akan bertanya yang sederhana, tujuannya supaya bisa memancing mahasiswa untuk lebih tahu. Untuk Shellfish, Prof. Iwan, apakah ada teknologi khusus di mana bisa mempercepat tingkat kematangan gonad ya, atau mempercepat fase reproduksinya? Apakah Malaysia mungkin sepengetahuan Prof. Iwan ada teknologi yang spesifik, namun itu mudah dilakukan oleh petani, oleh farmer, untuk mempercepat produksi daripada shellfish? Terima kasih, Prof.
Terima kasih Prof yang bertanya, Ibu Putri. Saya ada beberapa kajian, mungkin kalau Prof Putri boleh email dengan saya, nanti saya boleh bagi some of my published paper. Ada banyak cara sebenarnya. There's a field study that has been doing for the last 5-6 years. Kita juga ada menggunakan beberapa abstract hormone daripada tumbuhan yang kita gunakan, even daripada pakupakis, juga daripada spinach, daripada sayur bayam contohnya. They contain a lot of hormone, what do you call it, steroid hormone yang boleh trigger kematangan gonad dengan cepat. I have a project, most of these projects are basically on crab. Saya juga ada develop beberapa makanan menggunakan makanan semula jadi, contohnya menggunakan lokan, ataupun lokan ni adalah Di hutan bakau tu ada sejenis bivalve yang kita boleh guna. Most bivalve contain high protein content dan nutrition lain, dan ini boleh trigger mempercepatkan proses perkembangan gonad. This what we call it proses perkembangan gonad boleh juga dipercepatkan melalui teknik limb autotomy. Limb autotomy adalah teknik pemotongan anggota. You can trigger them using limb autotomy technique. The best method yang kita, there's one paper I think I did publish a few years ago, menggunakan teknik limb autotomy boleh meningkatkan kadar kematangan dalam begitu cepat sekali. Amalan yang biasa untuk udang harimau adalah menggunakan eye stalk ablation, potong mata, eye stalk ablations. We have done it also for shrimp and crab using unilateral eye stalk ablations. Unilateral maksudnya sebelah mata, ataupun bilateral dua-dua belah mata pun boleh. Tetapi di Malaysia ni katanya agak terlalu kejam kalau dipotongnya mata. Jadi kita tidak guna. Tapi eye stalk ablation is the most cheapest method yang banyak orang guna sekarang ni. Dia sebenarnya tidak kejam, tapi orang tengok macam kejam. Jadi kita pun hormati masyarakat sekeliling mengatakan bahawa itu adalah perbuatan yang agak kejam. Tapi I do know that it is the most cheapest method and the most easy method. Semua orang boleh pakai untuk mempercepatkan kematangan gonad untuk for females maturations. Because eye stalk ablation dia menyebabkan excretion a lot of this hormone that trigger because of imbalance of hormone issue. Yang keduanya adalah menggunakan limb autotomy technique. Limb autotomy technique juga menghasilkan banyak hormon dalam badan, sebab bila anggota tertanggal, when you have your limb been dismantled, ketam ataupun crustacean normally will trigger, the brain will basically trigger for to induce a lot of this molting hormone, and some of these molting hormone are related to reproductive, and that basically the what do you call it, the gonad will develop further, and this gonad development will be triggered and will be shortened dari stage 1 ke stage 2 ke stage 5 ovarian maturation. Because for female, the ovarian maturation from ovary stage 1 to ovary stage 4 untuk ketam dalam masa sebulan saja dia boleh pergi if you go for limb autotomy. Ini boleh digunakan dan ini lebih mudah, Prof Putri. Saya rasa for my advice untuk farmer, kosnya murah sekali, dia boleh potong mata, limb autotomy, ataupun dia boleh potong eye stalk ablations, potong mata, ataupun potong anggota seperti kita buat soft shell to limb autotomy. That are the two method yang mudah dan murah untuk penternak.
Oke, Prof, thank you. Tapi tidak ada treatment spesifik ya, Prof, setelah kita potong mata. Takutnya ini akan menyebabkan stres dan berakhir pada mortality. Tidak ada spesifik treatment ya, Prof, after doing ablations?
Tidak ada, hanya apa yang one of the normal procedure yang kita buat adalah all the female yang kita akan potong mata ini adalah ibu-ibu yang sehat-sehat. Maksudnya they are healthy females. One of the criteria is to use a healthy female supaya dia tidak berlaku stres. Itu yang pertama. Yang keduanya, semasa proses pemotongan ini kita akan kurangkan stres pada female. One of the technique adalah untuk letak dia dalam low temperature. Kita letak air itu dalam air sedikit supaya suhu airnya turun rendah sedikit daripada normal water temperature, probably 28 degrees Celsius atau 30 degrees Celsius, turun ke 20 degrees Celsius. Letak sedikit ais supaya udang ni ataupun kepiting ni lebih tenang. Dari situ baru kita potong mata dia. Bila kita potong mata dia, darah dia tidak banyak keluar, because darah udang dan ketam ni dia warna putih, dia white blood. cara untuk mengurangkan pengeluaran darah banyak adalah untuk dia tenang dalam air yang sejuk. Kalau dia tenang, air darah pun tidak keluar. Another teknik adalah untuk cepat-cepat untuk seal the wound. Caranya adalah menggunakan besi panas untuk potong mata ni, kita letak dengan besi panas supaya wound tu terus tertutup. Itu adalah cara yang paling berkesan untuk mengelakkan kematian.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof, for your brief explanation. Nice to see you.
Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Professor Ihwanuddin. Is there any more question? Enough for today? Well, if there is no more question, then we have to end our guest lecture for today with Professor Ihwanuddin, professor from University of Malaysia, Terengganu. But before we close the guest lecture, maybe we have Professor Ahmad want to say a few words for this guest lecture. Please, Professor Ahmad.
Terima kasih, Pak. Thank you, Prof. Ihwanuddin. Beribu terima kasih atas nama Departemen of Aquaculture, Fakulty of Fisheries and Marine, Universitas Airlangga. Sudah cukup lama ya Prof. Ihwanuddin dan banyak memberikan ilmunya bagi kami, Prof. Terima kasih. Insya Allah kita akan full up, Prof, ke depan. Termasuk ini, Prof. Proposal terkait dengan joint research, Prof.
Betul.
Insya Allah diterima, Prof, untuk kita. Kemarin kami atas nama Master Program Fisher Science untuk pull up joint research dengan Prof. Ikhwan terkait dengan riset gonadal maturity lobster, Prof. Jadi termasuk tadi yang kami tanyakan mengukur umur, Prof, ya. Nah, nanti mudah-mudahan nanti kita bisa, kalaupun alatnya tidak punya, nanti kita kirim sampelnya ke Prof. Ihwanuddin untuk kita bisa tindak lanjuti, Prof, untuk ini. Sekali lagi terima kasih Prof. Ihwanuddin. Insya Allah mudah-mudahan ini akhir tahun, mudah-mudahan tahun depan kita bisa lebih intens lagi untuk kolaborasi, terutama terkait dengan staf. Kemudian untuk adik-adik student, my student bisa untuk mudah-mudahan bisa untuk berkunjung ke UMT, ke Aquaculture untuk bisa menimba ilmu, riset dan lain-lain gitu, Prof, untuk ke depan. Terima kasih Prof. Ihwanuddin. Mohon maaf ini pimpinan fakulti, Dean and Vice Dean sedang ada meeting, Prof, terkait dengan rektorat, sehingga belum bisa join untuk hari ini. Salam dari Dean, Pak Prof. Amin, kemudian dan rekan-rekan yang lain, staf. Beberapa ada kegiatan lecturer di kampus, Prof. Terima kasih Prof. Ihwanuddin. Insya Allah kita akan jumpa kembali di kesempatan yang lain. Terima kasih, Prof.
Terima kasih sekali lagi kepada Prof. Dr. Ahmad Taufik atas persahabatan dan kerjasama. Terima kasih juga kepada moderator kita hari ini, Dr. Muhammad Amin, telah sudi menjemput saya untuk menyampaikan kuliah khas ni. Would like to extend this thanks also to the Dean, Professor Dr. Muhammad Amin Alam Shah, for his willingness for the appointment of my adjunct professor with the Faculty of Fishery and Marine Science. Kirim salam juga saya kepada wakil dekan yang sebelum ini. Jadi itu saja daripada saya. Begitu juga ribuan terima kasih kepada semua yang hadir, anak-anak yang hadir atas perkongsian ilmu tadi. Itu saja daripada saya, Prof dan Dr. Muhammad Amin. Itu saja, terima kasih.
Baik, thank you very much, Professor Ihwanuddin, for your time and also your very informative presentation. Kita hanya bisa bilang terima kasih banyak, Prof. And hopefully there will be some more collaborations in research, especially, and also in maybe by sending some of our students maybe. And also hopefully in future we can have more paper to publish together, Professor. It's very wonderful. It's very honor for us to learn from you with such a lot of experience in terms of, let's say, knowledge and also publication experience. It's very wonderful, Professor. And all we can say is thank you very much and have a good day, Professor. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Terima
wabarakatuh.
kasih, Prof.
Terima kasih, Prof.
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
Bye, Prof.